Okay, so here we are today. We're going to solve equations that have fractions, and this is just a little note, they all end up being linear equations. And so similar as we did last podcast, we're going to use the technique of finding a common denominator. And with that common denominator, we are going to use it differently than what you did in middle school, but we're going to come along and we're going to actually multiply through by the common denominator. So in this case, my common denominator is going to be 15. And so I'm going to multiply the right side by 15 and the left side by 15. So when I do it, each term gets multiplied by 15. So it's 15 times x over 5 plus 15 times x over 3 equals, well, 1 times 15 is 15. Now, doing the next line, when I multiply, before I multiply here, I'm going to try and simplify. I know 5 divides into here 1 time, 5 goes into 15 3 times. Similarly, this is 3, and this ends up being a 5. And so I go 3 times x is 3x, plus 5 times x equals 15. Collecting like terms, I get 8x is 15, and so x is equal to 15 over 8. And we can leave it as an improper fraction, as that's what mathematicians do. So we use the common denominator in a different way. Okay, so looking at this example now, we're going to try and find the common denominator. I got a 4, there's a 1 as my denominator, that's here, 3 and a 4, and a 1. So the common denominator here is going to be 12. And so using that common denominator, I'm going to multiply this side of the equation by 12 and this side of the equation by 12. And each term gets multiplied by 12. So it's going to be 12 times d over 4 plus 12 times 2 equals, and the 12 gets multiplied by the next term, 12 times 3d plus 2 over 3 plus 12 times 4. And so the 12 is multiplied by each one, and take the time and write this step. It's really helpful. Before I actually multiply, I'm going to simplify first. And I'm going to simplify here, the 12 and the 4, that becomes a 3. There's nothing to simplify here. This becomes a 4 because I divide both by 3. Put it together, I get 3d plus 24 is equal, distribute this one in, is equal to 12d plus 8 plus 48. Collect like terms, 3d is equal to, 3d plus 24 is equal to 12d plus 56. I'm going to bring the 12d over, so I'm going to subtract 12d, which will give me negative 9d. Subtract 24, subtract, and I get 32. And then I divide, I get 32 over 9 with a negative. And so the whole term here is negative. So that's what d will be. Using the common denominator to multiply everything and eliminate the fractions. Let's try another example here. So in this problem, now my common denominator, I have a 7, a 2, and a 1. My common denominator is going to be 14. So this side gets multiplied by 14, and this side by 14. So each term gets multiplied by 14, minus 14 over w minus 1 over 2 is equal to, well, 28. Simplifying here, that becomes a 2, and that becomes a 7. And so now we have to distribute in our values. So I get 2w minus 2. Be careful, this is a negative 7. So negative 7 times 4w is negative 28w. Negative 7 times a negative 1 is a positive 7. It's equal to 28. Collect my like terms, I get negative 26w plus 5 is equal to 28. Negative 26w. Subtract the 5 will give me a 23. And then I divide by the negative 26, and I get 23 over negative 26. And that is my answer for this problem. Now we got one more problem to go, and I think this is the hardest one, for sure. I have in my denominator, and I need a common denominator, I have a w plus 1, a 2 times w plus 1, and a 6. So if I want a common denominator, well, the common denominator is going to consist of w plus 1. And then also, if I just look at the numbers, the common denominator between 2 and 6 would be 6. So this is my common denominator now. So each term is going to be multiplied by 6 times w plus 1. So 6 times w plus 1 times w minus 1 over w plus 1. Well, minus, so that's the first term here, minus 6w plus 1 times 4w minus 1 over 2 times w plus 1. Now at this point I'm making it really complicated so I can tidy it all up and make it look really simple actually. But this step here that I write is really important because this way I don't miss out on any steps. And so if I look at this first term, all these factors here, I can cancel out these entire factors because this is a factor and this is a factor. Here, again, I can cancel. The 6 and the 2 becomes a 3, the 6 and the 6. And then when I finally put it together, I get 6 times w minus 1 minus 3 times 4w minus 1 is equal to w plus 1 times 1. And now I've taken this complicated problem, made a big ugly mess out of it, but was able to cancel things away to make it into a much simpler problem. And so 6w minus 6 minus 12w, be careful here, minus 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3, equal to w plus 1. I'm going to collect like terms, and I get negative 6w minus 3 is equal to w plus 1. Subtract the w, add the 3, and I get w is equal to 4 over negative 7. And so that is what w is. So this technique of multiplying by the common denominator is a really handy one to take complicated expressions and simplify them down.